Good morning, Team Alabama. Here is part 2 of chapter 10. The camera froze again. We're on page 65, and Mom has just told the kids that Dad wants to go on the Alice Pond show. So at the bottom of page 65, Cindy looks up and hisses, "He's that monster from Eastern Washington who murdered his kid." I placed the name immediately the second Mom said it, and now the voiceovers of a dozen TV news stories flashed back perfectly in my head. Earl Detrow killed his brain damaged 2-year-old son, Colin, a little over a year ago. He smothered the little boy and was convicted of second-degree murder. He received a 20-year sentence in Walla Walla State Penitentiary. Mom answers Paul, telling him about Earl. "I don't get it," Paul says. "Why's Dad into that?" Mom says, "I won't speak for your father. I am not going to stand here and lie to you and say that I understand or agree with everything he does. I think your dad believes that families like ours, families like with kids like Sean, are not very well understood. Your dad's work, his writing and his projects are about trying to get people to think about what happens when a child like Sean comes along." Mom pauses a second. Her face is sad, and suddenly she looks real tired. I think about all the times that I've heard her on the phone talking with Dad, crying, criticizing, and arguing with him. "Your father just wants you to know that he'd appreciate your cooperation for this project." Cindy snaps, "Cooperation?" She sounds mad. Mom adds, "He wants you both to know that if you want to, you can join him on the program and talk about life with your brother." The people at the Alice Pond show. Paul's burst of angry laughter interrupts Mom. "Right, Alice Ponds! I'd rather have ground glass pounded up my nose." "Paul," Mom says, pushing down a nervous laugh. "Join him?" Cindy asks angrily. "Why?" Mom pauses a moment before she speaks, "And I think your father believes that his work might help other families with kids like Sean. I believe that your dad feels that kids like Sean and their families need a lot more from society than volunteer stints with the Special Olympics. He knows that the problems that families like ours face are a lot more complex than they are presented on feel-good made-for-TV movies. Your father..." Paul interrupts again. "My father is a hopeless jerk, and I wouldn't help him do anything, least of all go on a freak show and talk about my brother." Paul pauses a moment, and then he adds angrily, "Alice Ponds? Alice freaking Ponds?" Paul's been mad at Dad for years, ever since he left us. Not all the time. They've tried to iron things out, but the peace has never lasted longer than a few months. Paul always finds something to get upset about and then refuses to any contact with Dad. These days, they're not speaking at all. Mom says, "It's completely up to you guys whether you want to go on the Alice Ponds. Your dad would never make you, and of course, neither will I." When your dad talked to me about this, he mentioned that the Alice Ponds producer wanted you guys on the show, but your dad didn't even ask me to ask you. He just wanted me to let you know that the invitation was there. If you want to go, you can. If you'd rather not, you shouldn't. Okay, guys, let's pause there for a few minutes. What are some new things that we know about what's going on in the story? Okay, Dad's been invited to speak on the Alice Pond show. Mom's asked both of the kids if they want to go or not. Tell me about how Paul feels about this. The other thing you might want to add is a question. Why do Paul and Dad seem to fuss at each other? Why does Paul dislike Dad? Why don't they get along? Did something happen in the past with Dad and Paul? Those are all questions you can add to your list. Good readers always ask themselves, okay, what's the new stuff I know here? And then what are some things that I might want to know? And then you add those to your facts and your questions. Cindy asks quietly. Okay, page 68 continued. End of chapter 10. You think Dad really cares about other people with kids like Sean? Mom answers right away. I know he does, sweetie. You know that I don't always agree with the things he does on the way he thinks. Sometimes I even get really pissed at him. But I know in my heart that your dad cares and that he's trying to do what he thinks is right. Cindy smiles. I know it's because Mom said pissed, and Mom never talks like that. Paul is still mad. Sure he cares, Paul says sarcastically, about himself. As I sit here listening, I realize that I agree with both Mom and Paul. I know Dad wants to help people, but I know that sometimes he's totally selfish too. If I could talk, however, I'd say one other thing to Mom. I'd remind them that Dad is really sharp when it comes to money and that writing business. I know it's vulgar and crude and crass to mention filthy lucre, but Dad does pay for our house, our food, and in fact, all our expenses. Okay, there are some great words we can add to our vocab right there. Vulgar, crude, crass, and filthy lucre. Lucre is money. And then you can look up vulgar and crass if you'd like and add that if you're not at 10. Go ahead and add those words to your vocab. Bottom of page 68. Mom works part-time, but actually I'm her full-time job. Taking care of me is expensive, and Dad pays for it all. He has to think about money. With Dad's fame from the Pulitzer and the controversial subject matter of Earl Détro, Dad probably sees a gold mine. And he's probably right. I'm sure Détro is a hero to a lot of people. His son had a terrible seizure condition and was retarded. Earl isn't an educated man like my dad. He worked at a gas station during the day and a pizza place at night. And when he was charged with killing his son, he pled guilty. Talking from the steps of the courthouse as he was being led away, he said, I did it. I killed him. How can I say not guilty? I loved my son too much to watch him suffer anymore. Then he added that he had killed his 2-year-old son to end his baby's pain. I'm pretty good at adding 2 plus 2 and coming up with 4. Dad's getting deeper and deeper into this whole ending pain stuff, which means that I'm in deeper and deeper trouble. Okay, so we're getting more suspense building here. Is Dad really going to kill his own son, Sean? That's a question that we have to keep asking ourselves. And what are the clues that he might be getting closer to that? Okay, add to your facts, add to your questions, add to your vocab. Make sure you're working on your autobiography. That should be getting close to being finished now. If you're not, you might want to spend some time working on that. Have a great rest of your day, Team Alabama.